Today's episode is brought to you by the Positively Productive Toolkit, a collection of workbooks that guide you through self-discovery and self-awareness. These self-guided workbooks, which include links to assessments, can be completed in minutes. Request this free resource and others at the positivelyproductive.com/resources page. Remember, you aren't weak, you're not behind, you're not failing. You're right on track for what's best for you. We've talked about rest and breaks and these concepts many times here, so I welcome you to say it with me. Rest is not failure. Rest is part of the productivity process. You're listening to the Positively Living podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Zaratny, founder of Positively Productive Systems and a productivity coach certified in positive psychology and stress management. Join me as we explore ways to live a more proactive, positive life with episodes on productivity, self-awareness, mindset, entrepreneur life, habits and systems, simplicity, fun, and more. I understand overwhelm personally as a multi-passionate entrepreneur, wife and mom to kids and cats, and as a caregiver. I'm here to help you choose what's right for you so you can do less, live more, and breathe easier. Sound good? Let's get to it. Welcome to the Positively Living podcast. I'm your host, Lisa, and today we're exploring a concept that needs awareness, the idea that small steps create big change. Have you ever dismissed a small step because it feels like nothing? Or maybe you got discouraged because you didn't see results right away when you started to take steps toward change. If so, you are not alone. We live in a culture that glorifies big leaps, dramatic transformations, and overnight success stories. We see makeovers fast-forwarded on TV. I mean, they're fast enough as it is because they have huge teams and production, and then they still fast-forward, so we see the results immediately. And the ones they feature are always the biggest, too. But the truth is, lasting change rarely happens in one giant leap. It might get started with a giant leap, but even that's not necessary. True lasting change happens in the little steps we take each day, over and over. Now, I didn't always believe in this idea. I've been impatient, struggling to let time and repetition work its magic. I bought into the instant gratification and lightning-quick transformations that I witnessed everywhere, from movies to marketing, especially marketing, and I came to expect it from myself. I should be faster. I should be better. I should be further along by now. One of the first books that upended this perspective was The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. It was my very first self-development type book, and it completely shifted my way of thinking about my actions and efforts. It even offered me my first taste of self-compassion and the permission to take my time. In a world built for burnout, for pushing forward, for hustling, this was a revolutionary concept to me. And now it's what I believe in so deeply that I want to share it repeatedly with you. Later, while poring through all manner of productivity books and studying what would eventually become my coaching focus, I read The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy, and these two books go together so beautifully. Olson's Slight Edge shows us that every small choice moves us closer to success or failure, depending upon how we repeat it. Hardy's Compound Effect emphasizes how those small actions accumulate, like compounding interest, into results that are far greater than the effort required in the moment. Both of these books showed me that the little things we do consistently, the habits we build, the choices we make day after day, aren't as minor as they seem. They're the building blocks to change. They add up, they build momentum, and they accumulate over time into something much bigger than we might even imagine. Have you heard the phrase, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts? That's what happens when you take the right small steps and trust the process. Small steps are powerful, yet we resist them and dismiss them as not enough. Why? One reason is described by James Clear in Atomic Habits as the plateau of latent potential. That's a mouthful, but simply put, when you start a new habit, like exercising, meditating, learning something new, the results don't appear right away. There's a gap between our efforts and the results we obtain, and it's frustrating to not see the outcomes we desire as soon as we think we should. Sometimes when we start, right? It's like the joke that you see about, I drank water and I ate less today and I hopped on the scale and nothing happened. I gained weight. It's like, it's so frustrating because we expect it so much sooner for the effort we put in. And unfortunately, it's during this plateau that we most often quit. I think most of us know about this gap, even if we're in denial and we don't want it to be true. Think about it. If you start a new language, you're not going to be fluent in a week. If you start exercising, you're not going to gain a lot of muscle or lose all the weight you wanted in a month. Now, you might make significant progress depending upon the specifics of what you're working on and how prone you were to creating this change. But still, it's not necessarily going to be what you want or hoped for, and it's definitely not going to be the ultimate goal that you set. Meanwhile, bad habits, they tend to reward us instantly. Isn't that just like them? Charles Duhigg, in The Power of Habit, explains how our brains latch onto habits with a cue craving reward loop. Do something pleasurable like eat a cookie or scroll through the reels on your phone, and your brain will reward you with a dopamine hit. That instant gratification makes that habit sticky, so to speak. It's going to stick with you and you will repeat it, and there you go. You have a habit. Now, if that habit served you well, that'd be awesome. But unfortunately, the easiest habits to form are usually the ones with long-term costs. They don't treat us well in the long term, while the ones with long-term benefits offer little to no reward early on. This is why just one more episode feels irresistible, but taking a walk or prepping a healthy meal feels like so much work. Our brains are wired to favor short-term wins despite how they undermine our long-term well-being. Add to that the cultural pressure to go big or go home and the comparison trap, which is exacerbated by all the grandiose claims and presentation that you see on social media. And you can see why we undervalue small, quiet, daily choices. This is why I strongly advise you to never compare someone's highlight reel to your everyday life. We know comparison is the thief of joy, and it also steals your proper habit formation too. This is why we need to remind ourselves of the power of the small step. It's where the lessons from books like The Slight Edge and The Compound Effect are most welcome. Olson reminds us that the very things we need to create change are often so small, they're easy to do, so we don't think there's that much benefit, right? And here's the kicker. They're also easy not to do. Drinking a glass of water instead of soda, or even drinking a glass of water at all and hydrating. Reading 10 pages instead of watching TV. Spending 5 minutes stretching or drinking that water instead of scrolling. These hardly seem like life-changing in the moment, but repeated day after day, they are. The reason why is that they don't just add up. They accumulate over time, compounding into dramatically different outcomes. And that's what we need to trust on the positive side of things, that reading 10 pages of a book doesn't feel like much in the moment, but if you do that each night and you have a 300-page book, you will have finished it in 1 month. Yes, I know we want to finish that book in a day or in a week, but we don't necessarily have the space or the bandwidth to do that. And if we trust the process and do it this way, a book in a month is fantastic. A dozen books in a year? How will that change your life? Darren Hardy expands on this to explain how success isn't about sudden breakthroughs or huge efforts, but about the consistent accumulation of small, smart choices completed over time. Now, he uses the example of money, which is easy to understand. If you invest even a little each day, the interest compounds. Well, the same thing happens with health, relationships, your creativity, and productivity. All the things you want to achieve can come from the compound effect. Now, you rarely notice the shift day to day, but 6 months or a year later, the difference is undeniable. I think our challenge is that we don't want to wait that long, but this is what we need to know about why the small steps that we take each day matter so much. The frustrating caveat here that I hinted at before may encourage you even more to take small steps, and it's this. The cumulative effect works in both directions. Small positive steps accumulate into growth and well-being, but small negative steps, like skipping your workouts, not drinking the water, ignoring your budget, overspending, neglecting your self-care in any fashion, those also accumulate. So the compound effect works no matter what, which is why being intentional about your small steps is so important. If you are ready to embrace those small steps, okay, Lisa, tell me how. Even though they don't feel like enough, here are 4 steps, and in fact, small steps, that will help you embrace them. Number 1 is to reframe what small means. Keep repeating a mantra like, small is significant, small is sustainable. Small is what will get you through, especially when you're tired, overwhelmed, or starting at the beginning. Small steps are the strongest bridge between where you are and where you want to go. Step number 2 is to celebrate each of those small steps, even though they don't seem like much at first. And it may be hard to think about how you could celebrate them. The way we can celebrate them is by focusing on taking them. Our brains love evidence, so tracking is key here. Write them down, the steps that you're trying to take each day. Check them off and reward yourself for the effort, not the outcome. That's the key. These tiny celebrations of each step, of taking each step, will release dopamine, reinforcing your motivation to keep taking more steps. Now, speaking of the outcome, step number 3 is to focus on your identity and not the outcome. So these go hand in hand here. James Clear in Atomic Habits reminds us that every action we take is a vote for the type of person we want to be. And I love that. This is especially good, by the way, for rebels who are like, you can't tell me what to do and I can't tell me what to do. You need to lock into the kind of person you want to be and then what things that kind of person will do. So this works really well for that. James Clear mentions this and gives an example. Don't aim to run a marathon, but become someone instead who laces up their shoes daily. When I worked with a client who wanted to become a published author, all while running a business and raising a family, we needed to talk about small steps during writing sessions and what would feel like a successful writing session to her. That's what she needed to track and to celebrate. So this way, the celebration wasn't about how much she wrote or what she wrote, but that she did. A Greek philosopher named Epictetus is attributed as saying, "You are a writer if you write." And I think that's a fantastic example of this idea. Who are you and what will that person do? What steps will that person take? And any step related to that counts. So the act of writing and her acting like a writer in each of these sessions is what we focused on, not what was written. And by the way, I have mentioned the session before in other podcasts, and I'm excited to say that she completed her book. Now, this was, I would say, within 9 months to a year. And again, I know we want to do things and have them be done yesterday. But realistically, you're living your life, running a business, raising a family, and you write a book in 9 months to a year. That's incredible. And that's what small steps can do. And step number 4 is use habit stacking. Tie your new step to something you already do. After I pour my coffee, I sit down with my calendar and I review my day. After I brush my teeth, I floss. I try to. After I get ready for bed, I check my alarms for the next day so that I'm ready. These micro actions can feel so small, you may wonder if they even matter. Do you have to do them consistently? But that's the whole point. By the way, if you like this idea of habit stacking and you want to know more, I lay out all the details on what it is, why it works, and how to do it in episode 227 on combining and stacking habits. So these 4 steps are highly effective in embracing the idea of taking small steps, but there are a few nuances I want to add. First, you want to choose your small. Consistency always trumps intensity, and it's especially important here. It's the whole concept of taking small steps. 10 push-ups a day for 1 month will create more change than one intense workout that leaves you too sore to move or potentially injures you and keeps you from moving for quite some time. Overdoing it stops your process. This is what we have to actually break the habit of here, is trying to do too much. Small, steady effort always outpaces short bursts of unsustainable energy. But sometimes the trickiest thing to learn, especially when you're used to overdoing it, is what a small step for you means. It may take some trial and error. You may have to practice this. You may have to keep getting smaller and smaller until it feels like the right level. Pay attention as you do this to how it feels for you, and make sure your small steps are actually small, or rather, the right kind of small for you in your life. And along with that, adjust to your season. While you're assessing what the right kind of small is for you, know that it will change based on the season you're in and you as a person from day to day. Some days your small step might be smaller than the day before, and that's okay. Celebrate whatever small you can manage, because when energy, focus, and capacity is limited, it's probably all you can do. And also realize that sometimes even that small feels like too much. Chronic illness, caregiving, even bursts of creativity, right? They all come in waves. You have to pay attention to your energy and to honor it. If you need to make the small even smaller, and if you even need to stop, like small is too much, remember you aren't weak, you're not behind, you're not failing. You're right on track for what's best for you. We've talked about rest and breaks and these concepts many times here, so I welcome you to say it with me. Rest is not failure. Rest is part of the productivity process. So I have many examples of how I've struggled with these small steps and how I've used the 4 steps that I gave you to turn myself around and really reframe what it is that I'm doing. Learning guitar is one of them. My son, who has a gift for stringed instruments, inspired me to pick the guitar back up after I unceremoniously tossed it aside at age 16 because it hurt my fingers to play and I was a whiny teenager and I let my impatience get the best of me. I started again, this time, we'll just say much older, much older, with a better understanding of the process and a humble acceptance that I would likely suck to begin with, and I would likely not be able to play a song anytime soon. Well, at least not well. Instead, my focus was on trying things a few minutes a day. I know now that more frequent, shorter bursts of practice are actually better for skill acquisition, so I focused on that because that felt doable to me and a life that is actually packed with so many other things. It didn't feel like I had the time for it, but I was able to make the time by saying 5 minutes or 10 minutes a day. And that relates to step 1 and reframing what small looks like. What small could I do, and how is that a good thing? Well, it's a good thing for skill acquisition, and 5 minutes a day was definitely doable. I started by playing basic open chords because that's a good foundation, and I learned finger-picking patterns because I enjoyed the sound, and I tried a few measures of a song at a time, every day for days. Sometimes it felt painstaking because I wanted to get to the whole song, but there was no way that I could learn it that fast. When I would play a lick that sounded familiar, I would celebrate that big time, and that's a small win, right, to celebrate from step number 2. Mostly, I became the person that had her guitar nearby and ready to practice each day. That relates to identity in step number 3. And by the way, having your tools nearby, having things convenient to you is a fantastic tip for habit development. Make it easy. I ensured that I would practice daily with habit stacking, number 4. I kept my guitar by my bed, and I found it relaxing during my evening routine to sit on my bed right after brushing my teeth and washing my face and playing quietly. I was mindful of how I felt each night, allowing myself to do shorter sessions or skip if necessary, and sometimes to go longer if I was feeling it. And I kept reminding myself that consistency would beat intensity every time, even if I felt like it wasn't enough, even if I felt like I was doing the same thing and I was doing it as good or even worse sometimes. I kept reminding myself that each step mattered. I will point out that I do have a background in music, and that helped me jumpstart some of the process. And it probably helped me hasten my progress. Understanding chords and how melody and rhythm are supposed to sound can help. But conversely, it was tremendously frustrating knowing what I wanted it to sound like and not getting my fingers to produce those sounds. Even though I may have had a little bit of a head start with some of the knowledge, the actual practice itself took days, weeks, months of repeated efforts. And it took a lot of patience. And today, I don't know, I still think I'm just okay at guitar, but I've improved a lot. And the key here is I'm not done yet. As we wrap up today, let me reiterate some key points for you. 1, small steps feel hard because the benefits are delayed, while bad habits can often reward us instantly. So watch for that trap. Don't let that trip you up. Number 2, our brains crave the short-term hit, which is why cultural messages about big wins are just so enticing. See through that false claim and trust the process of the small steps. And number 3, the reality is our lives are not actually shaped by the big moves. They're shaken by the big moves, but it's the cumulative effect of our daily choices that shapes who we are and what we achieve. I invite you to think about one small step that you can take in the direction of a goal that you really want and commit to it. Don't worry about how tiny that step may feel. In this case, the smaller the better. Trust that it matters because it does. The small step you take today is shaping your future self. And if you'd like more support in taking these small steps, which is developing habits that stick, I've gathered all habit-related episodes, including this one, into a special habits playlist. You can find this on the podcast page of the positivelyproductive.com website. You'll also find links to the books that I mention in all podcast episodes, including today's, like The Slight Edge and The Compound Effect and Atomic Habits, on my resources page of the positivelyproductive.com website. You want to scroll down to the podcast resources list. You'll find all of these books and more that we've referenced on the podcast. And if you are looking for a new and inspiring read, it's a fantastic place to start. As you move forward, hopefully encouraged to take some small steps toward the change you want, please give yourself permission to make those steps really small, stay steady, and let that cumulative effect do the heavy lifting for you. Trust in the small steps that lead to big change. I'll leave you with a quote from Jeff Olson that stuck with me for over a decade and still lives rent-free in my head in the best way. The truth is, what you do matters. What you do today matters. What you do every day matters. Successful people just do the things that seem to make no difference in the act of doing them, and they do them over and over and over until the compound effect kicks in. Jeff Olson, The Slight Edge. Thank you for joining me today. Your time is precious, and I'm honored you chose to spend it with me. If you have feedback or questions, you can find me through the Connect page of the positivelyproductive.com website. And if you're looking for any of the resources mentioned here, from books to products to training and more, go to positivelyproductive.com/resources.